As the nationwide protests draw near, some uplifting answers to the economic situation in the country is now coming into realization. President Bola Tinubu's approval of a new directive to promote the trade of crude oil using the local currency. This is a new directive and will not ensure the sale of crude oil to Dangote Refinery, with the subsequent sale of Dangote's product to others also to be conducted in Naira. Federal Inland Revenue Services Chairman Zaccheaus Adedeji announced that the move at the end of the cabinet meeting, estimating it will reduce foreign exchange costs by 50 million monthly or 600 million annually, with potential of saving $7.32 billion. The policy aims to stabilize domestic oil prices and lessen the impact of fluctuations. So as part of the implementation, Afrexim has been selected as the pilot settlement bank to facilitate these transactions.
We are looking for local solution, innovation to permanently solve our problem. Today, we are not doing anything new. Today, that is what I said. The current scenario is that Dangote and NNPC are in transaction. But what do? Dangote will open letter of credit just to procure crude oil from NNPC. And NNPC will also open letter of credit to purchase PMS or refinery refined product from Dangote Refinery. And both of them, NNPC will sell in Naira. This is mismatch. And you know dollar is not our currency. So when you open letter of credit, apart from finance fee that you pay to all these foreign banks that you need to go to foreign market. It's like me and my brother want to transact here in Nigeria and we open bank accounts in New York. I will go and look for dollar to pay to New York bank. My brother will go and look for dollar to pay to New York bank for the product that we exchange at our backyard. So Mr. President says this is not economical. And I just explained that this puts 30% pressure on our foreign exchange.
In the light of President Tinubu's decision, the move is considered as a win-win for the economy of Nigeria, which is in dire need of permanent job creation from the multiplier effect of Dangote Refinery, estimated to employ thousands of Nigerian workers, making the Nigerian people and the economy the ultimate beneficiary. Joining us now on the show as we look at a win-win for the Nigerian people and the enormous job Dangote Refinery will create is Aremu, Director General of Michael Imodu Institute of National Labour Studies, MINILS, in Ilorin, Kwara State. Great to have you again, sir. Let's talk about this. Yes, we have finally said we'll sell crude in Naira, which has been the agitation of a lot of refinery owners in the country. The question is, where is the crude to sell? Good morning, sir.
Well, good morning, Rufai, and of course, Dr. Abati, and I guess Ayo is there with you.
Yes, sir. She's here.
Yes, good morning to all of you. First, I think, as they say, I do think I want to start with talking of devil in the details. I think there is also godliness is in the details. In this case, we can discuss the details of the new announcement by the Federal Executive Council with respect to the deal with Dangote Refinery, together with the NNPC. But the principle first is that I'm quite excited that we now have what I can call development renaissance. I was privileged to attend to be at the inauguration of the Dangote Refinery, I think on the eve of the inauguration of the present government. I think that should be sometimes May 23rd or so at Lekki. Before then, in my capacity as the Vice President of Industrial Global Union, made up of 50 million workers, industrial workers worldwide. I also had cause to lead the sector unions in oil and gas, in petrochemicals, as well as in energy sector. We went there to make a tour of the most expansive refining project that Aliko Dangote has engaged in. So it's quite exciting that the kind of discordant voices that we had in recent time had been reversed, And I want to salute the statesmanship of the Federal Executive Council, ably led by the President himself, to look for the way to provide the ground for partnership between investors like Aliko Dangote as well as NNPC, so that the refinery becomes a reality. So it's extremely important, because the way to go refine for Africa is that we have to stop exporting raw materials. We need to add value. We need to beneficiate. And Aliko Dangote Group has demonstrated this. You know, I used to know this group when I was in textile. Don't forget that he was in textile before. If I started with Dangote Textile Factory in Kano, later on, I think he went into NTM in Ikeja, you know, which of course, you know, textile also went through a lot of challenges. But as I've been talking to you, he still has factories that are producing sack, you know, for packaging his cement. And we have a number of textile workers who are also working there. So this group has beneficiated before in textile. It has done very well in cement. You know, we've moved from import dependency on cement to, you know, sufficiency in cement. And for that bold involvement in refinery, I think it's quite exciting that the Nigerian government, which also had been partnering with it over the years, is now making it possible to become a reality. I listened to the chairman of the Federal Revenue this morning, and I think from the tape we also played, you know, if this works out, it will remove close to 30% pressure on our demand for foreign exchange. We are going to save close to $7.2 billion, you know. But the one that is of interest to me is even the job component of the, you know, Dangote refinery. We're talking of hundreds of thousands of direct and indirect jobs. You know, we're currently talking of protests. I mean, that has been the one that captured the imagination. You know, but even for, I mean, I've been in this business of protest for a long time. Even for the, you know, for youths or anybody to say you are going to protest for 1 day, 2 days, and close to 10 days, that tells you the level of idle capacity. You know, in organized labor, we can't afford that luxury, because we are protesting, we also have jobs to do. You know, and the way to solve the problem of unemployment is exactly the way that Dangote Group has taken: beneficiation, value addition, and employment. And you can see the amount of jobs that have been created by this $20 billion worth of investment. So all I want to say is that we can discuss the details. Where will the crude come from? Again, that also gives the challenge for all of us to look for where the crude will come from. But to ask that question, I think it's even a rhetorical question, Rufai. We're an oil-producing country. We must say, we don't need, I mean, we've given so much excuses for ineptitude, for non-performance before. But now it is clear that we just have to get the crude to supply. And I think those are the details that will be worked out between the NNPC and, of course, the Dangote Group. But I have no doubt that all producing country, we must provide crude. Yes. And I'm also excited that we have been told that payment has to be done in Naira, right, you know, in a very strategic manner. Right. We are de-dollarizing, you know, we're not looking inward with an eye on development. And I think for me, this is a sign of good governance. Okay. Yes.
And absolutely, you bring me next to my question. You've already started to answer it, even though you say that the detail will come on later. On the surface of things, on paper, fantastic news, you know, move in the right direction. But the big question, which we cannot escape from answering, are some of the challenges that would make this announcement or this direction a bit difficult to achieve. So whilst we understand, yes, 450,000 barrels per day earmarked for Dangote Refinery and other local refiners, the question is that already we have some forwards, crude forwards, and payment in crudes obligations. And so it means that it might be nigh on impossible to have that production, you know, to have that supply that is much needed. How do you think we'll begin to overcome this challenge? Because we can rejoice and celebrate this announcement, which is good. It's a movement in the right direction. But then how do we solve the issue of production and NNPC or Nigeria's ability to produce enough to meet the demands of Dangote Refinery and other local refineries?
Yeah, precisely, Ayo. Well, it seems impossible until it's done. I'm very sure last week we wouldn't have been discussing this if the new direction has been announced by the Federal Reserve Council has not been pronounced. I mean, the picture we had last week is like a war of attrition. But now we are seeing constructive collaboration. I've always been calling for a kind of, pan-Nigerian alliance for development. Again, even the point you've raised, look at the numbers you've just thrown out. We have a refinery by a private investor. I'm very sure if you also, and do assume it, I mean, we shouldn't just take it as if it's only a liquid Dangote group we're talking of. As you said, the 450,000 crude should be for all the other refineries. I think there are a couple of modular refineries. Now, if Aliko Dangote refinery, which has the capacity of 650,000 barrels, could not even get up to that 450,000, assuming all factors are equal, including the one you've just announced, that future sales have not taken place. That tells you that we need to sit up. I mean, we can't be talking of crude oil theft when we have this crude oil demand, for development. So, and that's where the challenge will now be, that now that we have gotten this deal, we have to walk the talk to make sure that it works. And if there is a will, there will be the weight. I'm so excited there's not the will, and there should be the wills. And there's nothing sacrosanct about those agreements that have been entered into. Features, all those features could be reviewed. In fact, that we're discussing them, they are also being subject to reviews. We enter into them. Why should they be so? To whose purposes? And those are the issues that we need to revisit.
Comrade,
yes.
If you can hear me. Now, two things.
Yes, I'm hearing. Yes,
I don't think you've answered the question about where the crude will come from. And I agree with you that, in fact, that is where the devil is. What the Tinubu government has done, yes, is wise, is reasonable. They say it's thinking out of the box. It will help Forex to save Forex. It will provide opportunities. But Dangote Refinery is to produce 650,000 barrels of crude, of refined products per day. Precisely. The other refineries belonging to the federal government, 450,000. So if you do the math, over 1 million. At the moment, the major complaint that led to all of this was Dangote saying that he doesn't have the crude. Can they please give him crude? And he says, can they please allow him to sell at market price? Now, the NNPC may not be able to produce that crude, the volume that the Executive Council of the Federation has approved. Will you advise that the president should go beyond just saying, oh, give crude and sell in Naira, to say that NPDC, which is one of the subsidiaries of NNPC Limited, should take the consequential steps of taking a look at some oil blocks that I say are lying fallow. OML 11, OML 25, OML 26, OML 42, and OPL, the controversial OPL 245. That's one. Two, the other thing that came out yesterday was about minimum wage. That's your main area. You are not in oil and gas area. Your main area is labor. The president has now signed minimum wage. He has said 70,000 we can now pay, and also that even domestic workers should not be given anything below 70,000, and that the review will be done every 3 years. That's a new thing that President Tinubu has also done. So you may quickly summarize on oil and gas, and then you deal with the labor issue. After all, you are Director General of the Michael Emodu Institute of Labor.
Well, thank you, comrade. Now that you call me comrade, I mean, only comrade can call a comrade. But given your proficiency on oil and gas, I don't think you even want to pretend that you're a comrade, Ruben. But on a serious note, I think labor is everywhere, and I have told you my interest in the oil and gas. It's beneficiation, it's value addition, it's job creations. In any case, if there are no jobs, there won't be workers. If there are no workers, there can be unions. In fact, there can be comrades. And the way for Africa to be relevant is that we should stop this nonsense of exporting gold only to go to Geneva to go and buy trinkets and rings. We should have our refineries. We should add value to them. We produce cocoa. We go abroad to go and look for chocolate. It doesn't make sense. We can't get out of this poverty unless we add value. And I'm happy part of the Renew Hope agenda of the president is also concerned for industrialization. So that's my interest, I think, in oil and gas. As you said, you've worked out the details. Maybe you know better than me. Talk of MOL, I do oil fields that have to be, that we need to reactivate. We need to give them out. Well, I don't know much about. All I know is that as I'm talking to you, Ruben, we couldn't even meet our OPEC quota. I mean, it's a scandal. There was also Nigeria, in which we were even thinking of getting out of OPEC so that we could produce more. Because at that time we had an eye on development. We had 4 refineries working. Not only that, as at 1979, even the former President Shehu Shagari had planned to open plants, 2 plants, refineries abroad, strictly to take advantage of foreign markets so that we can be selling refined petroleum products. So it's a scandal today for us to be lamenting that we couldn't meet 450,000 demand for domestic refineries, when before we were not short of that in abundance. I think all we need to do is to return back to development. And that's why I say I'm excited that even the discourse has changed now, a development renaissance. I want to put it that way. It's what we have done before. It's what we need to get done. About those details, we'll work it out. And I think I've no doubt that FEC will meet without walking the talk. All we need to do is to make sure that the unique collaboration, between the NNPC, NNDP, you call them, and of course, all the local investors, led by Aliko Dangote, to really sit back and make sure that we have proper deals. But not only that, we should extract deals to support local investors. We must also extract concession even from the investors, because we must make sure the milk products are valuable in quality, in quantity. Not only that, jobs should be created, decent work, which should also include decent pay, which comes to your second question on this low minimum wage. And I think, Ruben, we've been discussing this for quite some time. For me, I'm also excited of the development yesterday. It also shows the collaboration between the Federal Executive and the National Assembly. Don't forget that it's an act of parliament. Even as we're agitating for improvement in minimum wage, it has to be an act of parliament. And I'm happy that the National Assembly, led by, actually the Senate by the Senate President, had found a common ground with the President to now know that we have a new minimum wage. And for me, that's a sign of good governance, and that's also one of the 2 reservations I have about my fellow compatriots who are about to demonstrate when they talk of end bad governance. I think we shouldn't take this for granted. And I want commentators like you to also be wary, what is bad governance? I mean, new minimum wage is good governance, a mark of it. It's the 6th national minimum wage we are signing. We started in 1981. And I can tell you, as somebody who has been in these circles, this is the highest we ever had, about 133%. In nominal terms, we can discuss in real terms again. Maybe this way you say, devil could also be in the details. I mean, I also know the food inflation. I know the food inflation, I know the numbers, I know the cost of transportation. But in nominal terms, we can't blame all the key actors who work out this arrangement. Organized labor are tried. Don't forget they were even on the street before to protest. And that's what made the difference between organized labor. Who's leading the protests. The visible ones, they are not leaderless. They also report back to their constituency. They know when to start, they know when to stop. The idea is to influence policy, not to engage in regime change. It's not about weaponization of simple protest. It's about delivering, for the workers which they represent. Now, 100%, 133%, and for the first time, it also covered domestic workers. This is also remarkable. In fact, minimum wage really, Ruben, is really meant for those voiceless workers. Most workers in organized public service and private service, they are not minimum pay. It's for the lowest pay. You can pay more. In fact, you must try and pay more. And there will be what they call consequential adjustment. There will also be a series of sectoral negotiations so that you can move from minimum to living wages. But what the minimum wage does is to create a social floor below which any worker at that level, will be protected. And for me, it's significant. And not only that, what makes this new agreement, new law, very revolutionary, if I have to use that word, is that it has reduced the cycle of negotiation from 5 to 3 years. Again, this is very unprecedented. Originally, it used to be 5 years. But in real terms, if you do the calculation, I've told you this is the 6th cycle of negotiation. If you start from 1981, before, the review had been within a decade. But now it's in the law that no more than 3 years. And I think with time, we should even find a way to make it much more annual. United Kingdom mentors in this negotiation, this minimum wage business. And it was after the riot under Margaret Thatcher that she grudgingly agreed for minimum wage. That was 1989. We started 1981. But today in UK, minimum wage is reviewed annually. They've just reviewed, in fact, April 1st of every year, to review. They just mark it up, per hour. They also disaggregated based on the age of the workers they have for the youths, they have for apprentices. And this is the way to go. But I want to salute organized labor led by NSC and TUC, as well as the federal government, the government executive council led by the president, of course, the National Assembly. And you shouldn't take this collaboration for granted at all. Because if there is conflict between the executive and the National Assembly, they politicize the discussion. We wouldn't have this minimum wage. But that now provides a grant for all the actors to make sure we implement the minimum wage. Because it's one thing to sign it, another to get implemented. And this is why the National Salary and Wages Commission, we have to make sure we retain that commission statutorily. Because it's the one to midwife, to work out the details, the tables, how it affects other categories for workers, and lay the background for a round of negotiation that may possibly lead to living wage. So, once again, I think I would like to say that, again, it's a sign of good governance. If you also had this I also had the sign by this morning that the Minister of Aviation sensitively, has also suspended the new round of taxes, I think initiated by, is it Naira, in the aviation sector. That also shows there is already a response to the plight of Nigerians, that things are not easy, and the only way to remove the burden is to reduce taxation at this hour, put more money in the pocket of Nigerians, as the case may be. So I really want to say that this development taking place at a time we are talking of national protests, this also shows that Nigeria is a democracy destination. Ruben, show me a country where people cannot demonstrate for their rights, and I will tell you it's not a democratic society. I can also say Nigeria is one. Certainly, we are not Rwanda. I like go to Rwanda for 1 or 2 activities, excursion and co. But it's not a place that me and you want to stay. Kagame is doing a very good job, but citizenship, as we know it in Nigeria, is not the same thing as there. Citizens are alive, and I want to commend Nigerians for making the point loud and clear that it's time for us to rethink the reforms, that let there be no policy without Nigerians, and even if government makes certain decisions, they are open to discussions. And we have seen it now being displayed in this engagement. And that means that anything we want to do has to be done in the atmosphere of peace, and that's why we need to be careful. The protest that is coming up, we must make sure that it's well focused, it's well guided. I'm happy the police has also said they will be able to do their side of the bargain. But in all this, we should congratulate ourselves that we have a democratic process, and we should nurture it. We should deepen it. We shouldn't do anything to undermine it. Okay. Because the beauty of open society is that the forces that want to undermine the open society also take the advantage of openness, to undermine it. So to wrap up, I think the new minimum wage is quite commendable. We can the Minimum Wage Act is remarkable. We can only deepen it further to make it real. And this is why government and labor must work on microeconomic stability so that nominal wage increase become real increases for the workers.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also, you would agree with me that this is the worst in terms of value since 1981 that we started having minimum wage, as you said, because this is the most worthless. Even if you see the amount that was agreed in 1981, when you relate that to dollar terms, it's more than what we have today. In dollar terms, this is way less than $50. I mean, this is one of the lowest in dollar terms, if you are to benchmark in dollar terms. So that's also an indication for the stark reality in a country where 2 bags of yam is inching close to 10,000 naira, and a bag of rice is way astronomical. And that's also a testament to the protest for good governance. I want you to help me wrap my mind around these 2 key decisions President Tinubu made. How can you float a currency and remove subsidy at the same time? And added extra 11% inflation to a country. And you are saying now that people should not protest against bad governance. President Tinubu came out openly to say removal of subsidy was against his advisors. A leader that did not take advice, that threw a country to a quagmire. A key national decision-making process is not supposed to be a thing of human macho or gusto, which the president did. This is why people are protesting against bad governance. A country where people are suffering, lawmakers are buying cars, the president wants to change his private jet. They built 21 billion worth of vice presidential palace. These are why the people are protesting against bad governance. How do you reconcile all of that?
Well, I think you've said it all, and I don't think I need to overflog. I mean, I've told you I've been in this business for a long time. The minimum wage in 1981 was around 25 naira. You know, NSC was led by the pioneer president of NSC, Comrade Hassan Sumani. In nominal terms, I mean, that must be peanut to us. If you tell our the young workers, they won't believe it that how can you make minimum wage to be 125 naira? But there was once in Nigeria in which Naira equals almost about 1.5 US dollars. You know, that translates almost about $250 that time. You know, but you know, in nominal terms, that was insignificant. But that money could take workers home. You know, even as at year 2000, when we, under Comrade Adams Shomole, when we raised minimum wage to 5,500, we say had more or less the exchange was almost about 65 naira. I mean, that money was still very significant. And I could recollect when we were negotiating under President Jonathan, when we moved it to 18,000. I know we are looking at the numbers and the rates. You know, will Nigeria be competitive? Don't forget that investors are also looking at the numbers with respect to minimum wage. How much will they pay to labor to sustain jobs? How much will it impact on their profit margin? And then we are trying to settle that time for 18. You know, it's okay, $95, $85 as the case, you know, because China used to be the benchmark. Because if you also price labor too high, some investors will go to China. We know China minimum wage was around $85 to $90 that time. So I know. So I agree with you that in real terms, and I think I said so before, you know, that when you look at the devaluation of the currency, the deal we've gotten now, as significant as it is in nominal terms, in real terms, is still not comparable to where we're coming from. But that now raises the challenge. The challenge is that how do we address the microeconomic challenges that we have at hand? And I don't think anybody, including government, thinks that we don't need to look at these numbers once again. I think we need to rethink reform. That's the point I was trying to raise. We have to rethink reform. We need gradual, consensual approach to reform. Shock therapy approach to reform lead to shock responses, as we are witnessing in recent. And this is not the first time. I mean, one of the things that killed the textile industry, I can tell you, was shock approach to the uncritical way in which we liberalize trade. We don't open our market, and also goods came from China undermine us. I think we need to space reform. And I think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, from the responses he's taken now to address some of the concerns of Nigeria, he has shown the capacity to review policies, to review a number of the measures he has taken. And this is why I've now made a case, and I want to repeat it quickly. Just 1 minute for me, is that we need engagement with the government, organized labor, to lead the engagement with civil society, with government, to not look at beyond responding to consequences of reform. We should also be at the table where reforms are being made. And that requires involvement of different stakeholders, so that we don't engage in policies that mutually undermine the growth of the economy and even undermine the effort of the government. You know, I mean, if you have done this increase in wages, and yet in real time it doesn't deliver, it's because of the policies that have been in place. Yes. Okay,
Comrade, if you can hear me, just as a follow-up to the question that Rufai was raising about the value of the 70,000 naira. Here is one of your friends, I guess from way back in the past. Please let your response be very brief.
Yes.
He says, ask him the difference in dollar terms between 125 naira in 1981 and 70,000 naira of today. Aremu was brought to Uniport from ABU after he had been expelled to finish his program in economics. It was the social forces at play in those days that made it possible for him. And today he talks from both sides of his mouth. This is probably one of your friends that knows you very well. What do you say to him? He shall remain nameless. His name is Yahweh. I won't mention his name.
Well, I guess you are the one reading it, so it could very well be Ruben. He's the one that you ask a name.
No, it's not. He's here on my phone. He's here on my phone.
But you know, no. But I don't think that those are the issues. You know, I mean, I've told you that protests are legitimate. You know, and I'm fully in support of any effort to influence policy through protests. You know, policy contestation. That's our stock in trade. You know, even as a DG, I've had cause to also express my concern about issues that are taking place. So I'm tested on that, you know, and I'm talking straight. There is only one way for me to speak, through the way I'm speaking to you here. And all I'm trying to say here is that we need to move from policy contestation to also policy engagement. If you are not part of the dining table, you'll be part of the menu, Ruben. You know, I mean, and it's important, and that's why I say that all the National Economic Council, Advisory Council that have been put in place, labor should be represented.
All right, Mr. Aremu.
Civil society should be represented.
All right.
You know, and we shouldn't take this, our right that we have to protest for granted. It's because we have a democracy, we shouldn't undermine it. Any protest we are carrying out tomorrow should be, or anytime we are going to do so, it should be peaceful, well organized.
Your point's well established.
I mean, even you, three of you, you have been getting verbal protests every day, but you do so peacefully. Some toxic, some reconciliatory.
We're doing our job.
You know, some. I know very well.
Bias.
You know, so
thank you so much, Mr. Aremu.
That's the way it should be.
Yes,
that's the way it should be for all of us.
We're out of time. Thank you
very
so much.
So
I believe that your points are well established, and you know, we will continue to have conversations around this. Obviously, just the beginning. Even though the right move in the right direction, we'll continue to have conversations around this. Thank you.